Hello and welcome to another edition of Convict Inc. I'm your host, Robert Rosso. If you have not subscribed to this channel, please do so. If you like this video, please push like and share it with your family, neighbors, friends, enemies, etc. Tonight is Mob Monday. If you've ever seen the Fox TV series Fargo, season 4, then you'll know it was loosely based on the so-called Black Mafia out of Kansas City. Now, the star of the show, Chris Rock, had a character by the name of Loy Cannon, who was based off a real-life person by the name of James Philip Doc Dearborn. Doc, according to the show, is the boss of the Black Mafia, and there's a few things wrong with that, and I'll get into that. First, let me say this. In 1998, in September of 1998, I entered the federal penitentiary in Leavenworth, Kansas, and was assigned to B lower cell 250. A few doors down was a man by the name of Eddie Cox. Eddie Cox, to me, was a guy who I heard was a great jailhouse lawyer, was tied with all the mob figures in the unit and in the prison, but I never knew much about Eddie's life on the street. I knew that he was serving times for drug-related charges and that he was also posing as a DEA agent or FBI agent, and I believe the name of the agent was Cohen. Literally arresting people and doing, like showing up and arresting and taking all their drugs and money. A vigilante is what he was doing. Anyway, as I was there a while and got to know him, I realized and heard, and everybody's talking, that Eddie Cox is just a phenomenal jailhouse lawyer. In fact, Eddie and his protege, Russell Marks, to this day, I believe have won more cases for inmates than any other jailhouse lawyer ever in the feds. I don't know that for a fact. Eddie was incarcerated 32 years and had won hundreds of cases. Russell Marks, almost 30 years and over 100 cases that I know for sure. All during the time that I was in Leavenworth with Eddie, that is 5 years, I never once knew that he had any relation to the Black Mafia in Kansas City. In fact, I never knew that the Black Mafia existed. Well, let me say this. First of all, they never called themselves the Black Mafia. This was a name given to them, I believe, by the Justice Department. A little over a year ago, Eddie Cox was released from federal prison. He was serving life without the possibility of release. And like me, he got a compassionate release. He's currently living in Springfield, I believe, that area around Kansas City, with his children and grandchildren. Eddie was going to come on the show today. As a matter of fact, if I would have listened to him 1 week ago, you'd be seeing an interview of me and Eddie right now. But for reasons beyond both of our control, at this time, Eddie cannot be interviewed. He will gladly do an interview with me as soon as he is able. Could be 2 months, it could be as much as 6 months. We shall see, or the end of the year. I want to now, let's now get into what I know. Because I've talked to Eddie, because we've talked extensively, I was able to not only Google stuff about the Black Mafia, which I'm still not good at, but I was able to go and get the real source of information. Let me say this. According to any media reports, it'll say that the Black Mafia began in 1969 or 1970 and had basically a 7-month run. According to Eddie Cox, the truth is the Black Mafia they didn't call it that, was formed in March of 1968 and lasted until May of 1970. In fact, and media reports will say this, and Eddie Cox was actually the mastermind of this organization. This organization included James Philip Doc Dearborn, James Eugene Richardson, and of course, Eddie David Cox. Let me read here what a former Kansas City detective and current blogger by the name of Gary Jenkins has said. Eddie Cox was one of the smartest and most dangerous organized crime figures of this area in Kansas City, Jenkins said. He was one of Doc Dearborn's most trusted advisors, and they controlled a lot of this area's heroin market for a long time. In fact, on the east side, they controlled 100% of the market. By the way, did I mention that Eddie Cox is a white man? Yes. So it was Eddie Cox who came up with the idea to form an organization and take over the east side, and that they did. At their height, again, this March of 1968 until May of 1970, they were making, at the height of this drug, it is said that they were making about $100,000 a day. I did not confirm that with Eddie. I should have asked him. But there's a lot of reports about that. It also says that this group was attributed to 17 murders. When Eddie was released from prison, he did an interview with the Kansas City Star. He was asked about that, and he said, I was never been charged with the murder, and if police would have believed that, he would have been charged. That's his statement. There are some things that people should know, things that you're not going to read about in the media, and Eddie just informed me of this today, just a few minutes ago, actually. Let's go talk about James Philip Doc Dearborn. Who was this man? He was actually a Creole from Louisiana. And what people do not know is that Doc graduated medical school. Now, the medical school, and I think it's the Meharry Medical School, this was an all-black school in Tennessee. I'm sorry, Mr. Cox, if I got that wrong. Meharry Medical School. So, this wasn't some just street guy. This was a really educated man. He graduated medical school. But as Eddie said, he liked crime better than anything to do with medicine. That's why he became who he was. Eddie had met, I believe they met in Lansing, but they for sure did a lot of time together. And the two became fast friends. Also, another thing they didn't talk about, information I got, is that as a organized crime figure, Doc had something called an air tax. If he did not like you, he went up to you and he would say, there's an air tax. That's $500 a week the person would have to pay Doc, or he had to quit breathing. Specifically, I think Eddie had said that he would go up to him and say, hey, all the air in this area is mine. I own it. If you want to keep breathing it, it's $500 a week. And if they didn't pay, then they didn't breathe air anymore. Also, it is important to stress that of the 17 people that were killed, who were allegedly attributed to the Black Mafia, not one was a civilian. All of them were involved in dirt, crime, but not one was a civilian. That's important because a lot of times when you see 17 murders or something like that, you think about innocent people that died. And of course, those people have families and we can get into all that. But when you're involved in that world, you live by the gun, you can die by the gun. It's just how it is. It's how it is. Other notable things to talk about are, as far as the Black Mafia is concerned, is the killing of Leon Jordan, one of the first black detectives on the Kansas City PD. On July 15th, 1970, civil rights leader, and he became a civil rights leader, Leon Jordan was gunned down outside the Green Duck Tavern on contract by none other than the Italian mob. Specifically, it was Nick. I'm sorry, I got all these notes here. Nick, it's Sevilla. And what happened, I've just recently found out, was that Leon slapped an Italian. I don't know if it was a mob member. a family, a member of the boss's inner family. Whatever the reason, whatever happened, at that point, Leon was as good as gone. And so he contracted the Black Mafia. The words that were said specifically is, "I want that and we're dead," close quote. Okay? Now, since his death, that murder has been pinned on Doc. And there it shall stay. Also, prior to the DEA forming, there was the Bureau of Narcotics and Dangerous Drugs. The DEA didn't form until 1973, by the way. 2 agents for the BNDD, Bureau of Narcotics and Dangerous Drugs, were killed. 2 black agents who were trying to infiltrate, trying to investigate the Kansas City Black Mob. And let me make sure I got this correct. I'm sorry. Wow, this is bad. 17 murders, bank robbery, birth. Oh boy, how did I do this? The first one was killed on 63 and Cottage Street in Kansas City. The second agent, Junction City. To this day, those murders have never been solved. It is not. I'm not here to say that the Black Mafia did it. There was 17 murders attributed to them, and then the question of these 2 BNDD agents. So, the Kansas City Black Mob ended, like I said, in May 1970. Really fascinating. If you really go back and read some of it, look at some interviews that Eddie did from the Kansas City Star when he first got out of prison. You can put more in context, more of the backstory. He did an interview on Blood on the Razor Wire with Chad Marks. Chad didn't take a deep dive into the Black Mafia. At some point, like I said, Eddie Cox will be here in his own words. Now is just not the time. I want to say again that Eddie Cox in prison, I don't know about what he was accused of all this stuff on the street. When you're in prison with somebody, you don't see all this. You don't see what's written in the papers. You don't see these monsters. Criminals are not full-time monsters. Well, I mean, I've met a few. I met a few. Criminals are people. They have a crime side of them, and they have this family side of them. You can call them manipulative, whatever you want to say. But because I was in prison so long, I see people. I've said this before about mob figures. I don't see the guys that killed everybody with the big chains and have all this. I see men stripped down. And how a man treats me is how I will treat them. I've said before that I've ran into organized crime figures that have been extorted. I know some. And then there's guys that are just true gentlemen. And Eddie Cox is one of them. No punk in prison. Great guy. Helped a lot of people in spite of what any media stuff may say about this guy's past. Yeah, and I want to say that. Bummed out that I didn't do the interview with them. It was last week or was it the week before? I was supposed to call him the next day. We would have done it. But it will come. Next week, we'll see what I'm doing. I have possibly somebody calling from prison. We'll figure it out. I know this is a little short, but I hope you enjoy it. Thank you.